of Battlehosts. Be a better gamer, build a better community.
Welcome to the Battlehosts, a podcast and website dedicated to helping you become a better 40K gamer and to build a better community of players. I'm your host, Mark, and tonight marks our 100th episode of the Battlehosts. Rather than do a typical episode, I wanted to try to mix things up, and I wanted to do something a little bit special. The topic for this episode is, why do we play 40K? And rather than talk about my own personal experiences, I wanted to reach out to some well-known podcasters in sort of the 40K land. I wanted to hear their stories about how they got started with 40K, some of the highs and lows, some of their favorite moments, some of their worst moments. Have they ever walked away from 40K? What are the kinds of games that they prefer? What are the elements of 40K that really mean the most to them? And finally, what is it about 40K that is important to them, and why is 40K important? And I really want to answer the question is, why do we play 40K? So by getting three different perspectives on this, we can get this question about what is it about this hobby that is just something that gets inside you and becomes such a big part of your life. I'll introduce my guests here in just a minute, but before we get started, if you like what you hear, subscribe to us on iTunes to catch all the latest episodes. You can also follow us on Facebook under the Battlehosts. If you'd like to support the Battlehosts for as little as $1 a month, please visit patreon.com/thebattlehosts. If you join for $3 a month, you get access to our Discord chat where we discuss all things related to the hobby. Now, for this podcast, I interviewed them all separately because I wanted to really get a sense of their own individual experiences. But I've actually put them in order of basically rough topics. So hopefully it feels like a seamless conversation. Let's find out who it was that I interviewed.
Hey everybody, my name is Paul Murphy. I run a podcast called Forge the Narrative. I also play in tournaments. I've been playing 40K for, since 1991. It's a lot of years.
A lot of years.
Yeah, played a bunch of different armies along the way. I have, of course, got some favorites. I've got some favorites that are like time period specific. Also played Fantasy Battles back when it was Fantasy Battle. Now I play some Sigmar too. I'm basically any kind of games I really like playing. Some friends, like local friends that don't play 40K, they're into board games. So play board games and stuff too. It's really I enjoy the thrill of gaming.
Hello, my name is Rizvan Martinez, also known as Skarri, amongst the denizens of the Dark City and around the world. I got started in Warhammer 40,000, I want to say about 18 years ago or so, when my grandmother passed away in England. And while I was visiting England and the family, walked into a hobby shop, walked out with the 3rd edition box set featuring the Dark Eldar and the Black Templars. The rest, of course, is history.
All right, I'm Val Heffelfinger. I guess the first game of 40K I ever played was the starter set from 2nd edition with the cardboard dreadnought. It was the dying days of 2nd ed, so I played against a friend. I remember thinking, I played the Orcs, and he played with the Space Marines, and he just never failed a 3-up save. And I remember thinking, why, this is impossible. Like, how could I ever... This guy, it's impossible. Like the 3-up save, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. It's, I didn't know the words yet, but apparently I was describing something as being OP.
OP, yeah.
And then from there, through the late teens, there was a group of us who played, and stopped playing somewhere in late high school. Popped back. I think we had like one comeback game, like in 4th edition somewhere. I bought the new rule book, and we literally got the compressed air dust, cans, blew the thick layers of dust off our terrain and played a game. And then after that, I basically was a deeply closeted 40K player for about 10, 11 years, I guess.
What does a closeted 40K player look like? I mean, what do they mean by that?
Looks like a normal person who just every now and again thinks to themselves, "Oh man, I'd love to play some minis," and then immediately says, "No, that's stupid, man. You can't do that. It takes up too much time. Everyone will make fun of you. You can't do that. No, shut up." And then that progresses for many years, and you just bury that. You hold that inside. And as far as any form of oppression that I've ever felt, or repression, I should say, I mean that is the most extreme one. So I mean, I'm pretty lucky. Yeah, eventually I was, married, career, all that good stuff, and I had a nice paying job, and I bought a fancy computer, and I was learning how to play Battlefield. I think it was Battlefield 4, and I sucked, man. Like I would instantly spawn and just die.
Yeah.
Like I'd die. I was watching YouTube videos. I discovered what Twitch was. I was following. I couldn't couldn't get any better at this game. And then I remember I just tore my headset off one night and I put it down and I said, I don't know what's going on with Warhammer. And then I Googled it, and I think some of the first stuff I saw, because I Googled orcs just to see what had come out, because it's like being in a coma for 10 years.
Yeah,
imagine you just missed 10 years, the last 10 years of 40K.
Yeah.
And I saw a Stampa and I saw a Dakajet. Both of things in 3rd edition were not possible. Sure. It didn't exist. Like Imperial Armor had just been released as I was leaving the game, and I was just immediately like, I gotta do this again. And then it was really at the surface, and I was at a board game night. And one of my friends, actually 2 of my friends who used to play in the basement when we were in our teens, were at the board game night. And I said, you know what? This is a nerd-friendly space. I need to share this with somebody. I've been thinking a lot lately that I'd like to play Warhammer again. And one of my friends said, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And the other guy said, I'm in. And 4 months later, we both had 2,000 points, and we were playing our first game, and I've fallen deeper down the rabbit hole than many.
All right, now before we hear more from Paul, Skarri, and Val, let's hear a word from our sponsor, DGT.
We all love Warhammer 40K, but sometimes games just take too long. Using a game timer is the best way to make sure games finish and for both players to get an equal amount of time. Check out the Easy Game Timer from DGT, manufacturers and designers of the timers officially sanctioned by the International Chess Federation. It's simple to set up and customize, and your settings are saved when it's turned off. It's easy to use with a large moving lever for changing turns and a clear digital readout. It's the most affordable and high-quality game timer on the market and is the choice of most 40K events. Whether you want to practice before a big event or you just want to be a better player, the Easy Game Timer from DGT is the perfect game timer for your 40K events. The DGT Easy Game Timer is available from many online retailers. Wholesale pricing is also available for tournament organizers. Check these fine clocks out at dgtnorthamerica.com. Speed up your game and improve your play with the Easy Game Timer from DGT.
Tell me about that first, how did you first get started? What was that first moment where you walked in the gaming store and said, I want to buy this thing, this 40K model?
I'd of course been in gaming stores before, but I've only bought like role-playing game stuff, or maybe I think that may even been about the same time with the 40K I got into Magic too. Mostly just, like role-playing game stuff, some dice, a map or something or whatever. Yeah. And it wasn't until I got together with some other friends that one of them played 40K, and I think he was just looking for people to play with. So he kind of, evangelized it. Yeah. But look, it's so awesome, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But and I knew what he was talking about because I had seen it at a gaming convention. There's this convention here in Atlanta, and it was way smaller back then, but walked by a table and some people were playing what came to be known as Warhammer 40K. Mm-hmm. I think they were playing Chaos versus Imperial Space Marines, and they were battling over an objective in the center of the table that was one of the old school dreadnoughts. Yeah, it was one of those things to where the dude, again, he had the books, he had all the books, so we read all the books, and everyone in the group started kind of gravitating to the things that they were most attracted to. I was Eldar, wanted to play the space elves originally. And, people went where they went. I had Tyranid players, Chaos players. There was probably, 30 of us that were playing.
That's a big group. That was
at that point in time.
That's quite the recruitment that he was able to do there to get 30 of you together.
Yeah. Well, it starts, you get one guy and he goes to his other, kind of group, and then we then get it. Then it all just kind of circulates.
Yeah. What was the first model you purchased?
It was a box of Harlequins.
Okay. The metal ones then, right?
The metal ones, yeah. Like the box, like 20, 21, 22 Harlequins.
Yeah. So when you first opened that thing up, what was your first impression? had you purchased miniatures before, or was this the first kind of miniature you purchased?
No, I had miniatures. I had miniatures for like D&D. So D&D, like Ralph Parth would sell models. I don't know if they were necessarily blister packs back then, but they were in like cardboard boxes of like 8 to 10 miniatures in a box. You had the one fighter, the one barbarian, the one mage, and whatever. You can get boxes like that of figures. I had them, and I had gotten some, had paints. These are like testers paints.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd painted model cars and stuff in the past, stuff you can get from the grocery store back then. I don't know if you still can, but yeah. So I like the physical aesthetic of things.
Yeah, I think that was kind of, because I had built plastic model kits before as well, so I had at least a working knowledge of the construction of these things. And you're right, role-playing is so much easier to purchase for because it's cheaper, and that's kind of where I was started that as well. I just bought a lot of role-playing stuff, and then you sort of go, oh, well, this miniatures kind of take it to another level, and then just 40K is just kind of right there waiting for you going, hey, we got a whole miniature game here.
Well, I remember seeing ads for the stuff in Dragon magazine. I distinctly remember it was like an ad for a Space Wolves, either Land Raider or Rhino. I know it was Space Wolves, the part I distinctly remember, and all painted up really well. And there's I'm like, what is this? This can't even be real. That was that was probably like my first thing was in a Dragon magazine and a Walden books. I don't want to tell you necessarily how old I am, but that's And then seeing these things, and then seeing them at the convention, and then finally, meeting some folks that played or wanted to play, and then rest is history.
Black Templars were my passion, ever since I started the game. I got really into the lore. I was a very hard hobby gamer back in the day. I had a name for every single neophyte and every single initiate, and I kept track of each individual kill. And, I wrote up every battle report as a little, captain's log. I still have it somewhere. It's like a whole binder full of, actual typewriter type pages to make it look as ancient as possible.
Okay. So you were telling a story with these guys. I mean, this was an ongoing battle. They fought multiple battles, and you kept their story going. Yeah. Yeah, no, and every time I get a new marshal or a new Empress champion or things like that, they worked their way into the story, and they gained experience points, and if they got knocked out, they missed games. I was hardcore into the whole narrative thing for a while. Who were you playing when you first started the game 18 years ago? Who were you playing with?
My brother, mostly. My brother Joaquin. Him and I basically split the contents of the box and played against each other. We quickly found out that Space Marines outclassed the Dark Eldar by a lot. Then again, we also thought a multi-melter was a blast weapon melter gun, which we found out later was not exactly the case.
So you played with your brother. What was the very first model that you painted?
So my very first model I painted was the Space Marines from the Start Collecting set. I did paint the Dark Eldar as well, and I painted the Black Templars. But I quickly found that the Black Templars with silver and white shoulder pads with the decals on the shoulder pads for squad markings were quickly the easiest way to get an army painted. Yeah, got it. All right.
What edition was it when you came back?
7th.
Okay, all right. So second ed, so you were just a young kid at the time, and you just played a little bit, and
I'm 1984, so I'm 35, so I'm not like the oldest 40K person, but I'm not the youngest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so second edition, it was just the tail end. I want to say third edition's 98.
Yeah.
So I think it was probably around 96 somewhere.
Okay.
And then the friend who said playing Warhammer is the stupidest idea I've ever heard in 2015.
Yeah.
He also didn't like 40K in those days as an even younger kid, and he said fantasy is the cool one. So I actually spent the first 2 years playing Warhammer Fantasy. I had an Empire army.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Then we all got into 40K.
And then, so, I mean, you became you moved in your teen years, and you decided to put childish things away. But in the back of your head, you just had this man, there's something about that Warhammer that I played that long time ago that you...
Something about it. It just really gets its hooks in you.
Yeah,
I find it kind of fascinating. For those who like it a lot, it's really strange. I've always liked miniatures, I think. I don't know why. Maybe there's some sort of fantastical element to them, but like little miniature villages, Legos are miniatures, just those things where you can, I guess people talk about the idea of world building.
Okay.
It's just playing with toys is kind of a magical thing. And then as you get older, Warhammer's there with creative elements and building models and painting stuff. And then also there's the rules aspect of it, like the real crunch figuring out different combinations. And it's always been a game with, infinite perambulations. No. Permutations.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And so your mind can always run on it. You can always be sort of doing somersaults in the Warhammer 40K universe. So when you get sort of hooked in it, it's a really satisfying thing, because no matter what kind of mood you're in, you can consume. These days there's YouTube, but there's books. There's basically it can be all of your spare time if you let it be that. And actually, that's something I did forget. In all honesty, that. One of the main reasons I did stop was because of how much I liked it. If it makes any sense. Yeah. And I would something that's very easy to obsess over. And there's a time where I needed to not be super obsessed. And that's one of the reasons why I said, I can't do that. I'm just going to, I'll just, live in a van and play Warhammer. Yeah. And we can dream.
When you first started playing, who were you playing with? Was it just that group that all kind of got together that sort of decided to kind of jump in roughly the same time?
So we played, again, there was a bunch of, we play on ping pong tables, and we play 30,000 point games or something, it's, not necessarily 1v1, we'd be playing 5-on-5 or something like that. Because the rules back then, this was the tail end of first of 40K, and then the beginning of seconds when we started.
Yeah, and those are complicated rules.
Yeah. And then we met some other people as we, our groups expanded. We started doing some other things, interact with other groups, and turns out that, they'd been playing for a while. So we met even more people then that had been doing it. This was back when across the other side of the city was forever away. You just didn't, you would never have interacted and stuff.
Yeah.
So we found people that were playing Fantasy Battle, and then they wanted the group. With that group that we just started interacting with, wanted to run this massive fantasy campaign. So that's what got me into Fantasy Battle. But my first love and true love is 40K.
Nice. Okay, so it sort of escalated. What point did it become your main hobby? Where a lot of your, when you're younger, a lot of your disposable income has got to go somewhere. When did you start really focusing on it? It really getting into it, it's your thing.
Yeah, well, see, back then, you could get kits were a little bit more accessible.
Yeah,
and you could also win a tournament and actually come away with a decent sized chunk of an army. Even $100 as in store credit back then got you. It was a shoebox Rhino and maybe a couple of kits of 10 guardsmen or whatever, but it was still it all added up to start getting an army. And that's kind of how I funded myself within the game and started so many different armies, was winning local events.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to travel. I didn't have the means to travel to the, the big grand tournaments or, things that you had heard about. It's like the, pilgrimage couldn't have taken that stuff, couldn't have done that stuff back then.
Yeah.
But that's how I got, maintained along the way. But also, if you played an army back then, you might not have got a new codex for 5-6 years. So, whatever your army was, that could just have been it.
Yeah.
You didn't have to. Not that you have to chase the meta. I'm a competitive player,
sure.
So I do self identify as chasing the meta. I'm happy. I don't mind doing that because I want to play competitively, and I want to try to play best I can, and also try to beat it. I try to get out in front of the meta. It's made cool lists and stuff that have been able to beat some of the stuff that's out there, and I try to continue to do that. But if you can't beat it, you got to join it.
Yeah.
So chase the meta a little bit.
Does it ever? Just thinking about that idea of chasing the meta, because anyone who plays competitive, I think you start to build and paint with the idea that this is going to be something you're going to play, typically in an event or against somebody. Do you ever get kind of a little bit tired of that, or do you like the tension there of trying to find something maybe that people haven't quite figured out and getting it quickly built and painted and ready to go?
Yeah, you get to a threshold where you're getting ready for a big event, and you're going to brew something that it's just going to take everyone by surprise, or it's going to slip in that narrow channel between two lists or something that if you just dodge one, you'll slaughter everything else. And then you get to a point where it gets to critical mass of, okay, what I'm trying to do isn't working out. I've got to fall back to something that we know is going to work. Or
And the longer you play, I mean, you gradually build up lots of armies and gradually lots of models. And so the more you play, the more you can pull things off a shelf and try different things out. And there's new models that come out, but you can always fall back to lots of things, other things. Like, I mean, how many armies do you have right now?
Let's see, I've got 3 different types of Space Marine armies, maybe 3.5. Eldar. Couple different versions of the Eldar, Imperial Guard. I think that's what I've got active and assembled right now. Yeah.
And so
I've never been a big Tyranids fan. I've got on the shelf Gene Stealer Cults. I've got an AdMech. I have AdMech all done up too.
Are you a pretty?
I forgot about Chaos.
I was going to say
I've got a lot of armies.
I was going to say, wait a minute. I think you've talked Chaos before. That's your thing.
I did look over at the shelf. I'm like, oh, Chaos. I got a whole bunch of Chaos.
Yeah. Are you pretty?
Got demons.
Are you a pretty efficient painter? I mean, you pretty. Is it efficient for you to kind of pick things up and just kind of get them painted to a standard that you're happy with?
Yeah. I'm pretty fast. Now, I watch a ton of tutorials.
Mm-hmm.
I also, I think I've learned how to, I call them cheats.
Yeah.
Artists would call them techniques.
Sure.
That's what I'm not trying to be pretentious there. That's what they have told me.
Oh, sure.
Like, what you're actually doing is technique. Like, no, what I'm doing is cheating.
Yeah.
Because I have no natural talent when it comes to painting. I do pretty well with like color theory and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not, I don't have anything in me that makes it easy to put paint on a miniature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've learned these things how to be fast, since, when it helps, you get more done. Like I can sit down and bang out 30 plague bearers in no time at all.
And it's like, I think it is you have years of experience doing these things. So, at least how to put paint, on a brush and on a miniature. And, it is, like you said, it's a technique, but I think most painting is craftsmanship. Most armies I've seen are craftsmanship. There are some that are artistic, but that's a level I'll never get to that.
Well, and knowing what my years of experience is, this whole 10,000 hours makes you a master thing does not work with me for painting. But I do know what products to buy. Yeah. So, and there's products out there, technology's come a long way that makes it easier to paint. And so, you're talking about stuff, accumulating things along the way, what my collection really does, because, sometimes, a squad of attack Marines is probably not ever going to serve me any purpose. A fresh box on the shelf is probably not going to serve me. But my collection of bits is, because when it comes time to just reface a squad of something that is good, then having all those parts and pieces gives me a fast turnaround. Like I had to put storm bolters on, 9 things or something for a tournament recently, and I was like, probably 9 storm bolters over there.
Yeah, your Space Marine bits box is it's got to be massive at this point.
So it's a slight bit embarrassing, is what it is.
So I grew up in Mexico, near Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know that there was any sort of hobby. This was a long time ago, that there was any sort of Warhammer 40,000 anywhere other than us playing it or out in England or in the US.
Yeah, got it.
Until one day at school, I'd taken a white dwarf to my school, and I had a senior from the school basically pull me aside and bring me to their seniors table in the lunchroom, and I was like, this is cool. I thought they were going to beat me up or something.
Yeah.
But they noticed that I had a white dwarf, and they were like, this guy plays Warhammer. So they told me about the store that was in the city and where I could find people to play. And from there I started playing with them sometimes. And then I'd travel every Saturday. I'd get up early. I'd get on a bus. I'd travel for about half an hour on a bus to get to the train. I'd take an hour train ride. And then I would walk for half an hour to 45 minutes to get to this store every Saturday to play games.
Wow. All right. So you were hooked then. The game itself kind of hooked you then.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved the imagery. I loved the storytelling. I loved the different factions. I honestly, you can see the 3rd edition big black book, as we used to call it. Mm-hmm. The 3rd edition rules book that was just flipped through over and over and over.
Yeah.
And those pages were just worn and torn because I kept just constantly looking at the pictures or reading the little quotes in the margins.
Yeah.
And, reading the little stories that they had that because back in the day, I don't know if you remember, but some of the stories were split up into the different codexes. I distinctly remember a story in the Orc Codex and a story in the Space Marine Codex, but it was the same story just from the two different points of view.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember like little excerpts like that were usually like a page long, and I used to love like noticing that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, this is the same story. It's just the orcs telling it.
Yeah.
It was that sort of stuff was really cool, and it just immersed me completely into fantasy land.
Was it your primary hobby, when you were that age, when you were kind of a kid? I mean, was it really the thing you spent, your Christmas money on, or any disposable income you had, or any of that kind of stuff?
Warhammer for a teenager in Mexico is probably one of the most expensive things you can ever think about doing.
Yeah.
So I did, like, as much as I enjoyed the hobby, it didn't really grow as quickly as I knew was even possible.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had to sort of keep to was one army, right? Like, I couldn't really afford to collect multiple different armies. But yes, I used to spend, whenever I could, my friends and I, because I would because there was nobody to play, I would teach people how to play the game and get people involved and get people to order stuff and, try and create gaming groups around me.
Yeah.
But, so that I could play the hobby that I loved. So every once in a while, we'd put all our money together and make like a GW order.
Oh.
We'd make an order online and have it shipped to us, and it would take, weeks to get to us because the postal system wasn't what it is today back then.
Yeah.
And but then we'd get this big box with all the stuff, and we'd like go on a binge, painting and modeling and hobbying, and so that was fun.
And I guess thinking back, like when you first started to where you're at now, did the hobby ever slow down? I mean, did you ever get a point where you kind of walked away from it, or has it always kind of been with you?
The hobby has always been with me since I started it. I have this tendency to, like, I guess I'm crazy, and so I haven't really suffered from burnout as some people who have played the game around me for that much time. I was the kind of person who would go to a tournament, play 4 rounds in a day, get back as we were hanging out, and be like, who wants to play another game?
Wow.
Right? Like, there was just no off button.
Yeah.
However, I used to play other games in order to accommodate when other people did get burned out. So that's how I learned how to play like War Machine, or some board games like Battlestar Galactica from Fantasy Flight Games, or other things like that. And I've learned how to not burn myself out by just playing random stuff and just doing what I love to do instead of trying to chase like the meta, or trying to chase like what the best units are, or spending a bunch of money on stuff that I know I'm never going to use, or hoarding and collecting boxes and boxes in our shame pile.
Yeah.
I try and keep my shame pile to like the absolute minimum so that I don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing.
By now you've developed, I'm sure you have all the Dark Eldar units that have ever been, at this point. So they, when another unit comes out, like, the Incubi are coming out, it's easy for you to just sort of like, oh, well, okay, I can buy that and build it and paint it. And there we go. You're not always chasing new armies. You're not always building new stuff.
Well, exactly. It's one of the things that has allowed me to continue the hobby has been to learn how to, kind of hobby, it sounds cliche, but like hobby responsibly, if that makes sense. Yeah. Instead of like drink responsibly. I just finished painting 10 of the metal Incubi, right? Not the old metal Incubi, the newer metal Incubi.
Yeah.
And that new plastic Clavex looks amazing.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm probably going to have to splurge a little bit and kind of save up. But I'm really excited for like the direction that Games Workshop has been going with the hobby. Mm-hmm. And it has continued that fire inside of me of like, what are they going to bring in next, and what cool models am I going to get to paint and collect and add to my collection, or what are they going to add in this Psychic Awakening thing, or what cool like formations or data sheets or whatever it is they're going to put out. It's cool. I love that change. I love constantly being able to think on the fly and think of different unit combinations that that are just out of the blue and stuff like that. So that's really fun for me.
So you talked about, when you first started, $100 in store credit, it almost buy you an army, and you kind of talked about the price point being pretty accessible. How have things changed? I mean, the technology's changed. It's easier now than ever probably to build. Like building these new Marine kits is just a breeze. I mean, they're so well engineered. So it's easier to build these things, but the price has obviously gone up. Like what has changed for like a new player? Like think back to yourself when you first started. Is it something you could do now, or like what limitations did you have to work with?
Yeah, well, back then, it's really a difficult sell. Yeah. I mean, like if I would have walked into the hobby store as a 15-year-old kid with no job, no like aspirations of having a job, no, and told me what a full-on army would cost, I think that it would be a little overwhelming. But that's not how you have to approach the hobby. It's one of those things to where, especially with the way that lists can evolve, mm-hmm. I don't know that I would tell anyone to go out and buy a full army at once.
Yeah,
I think the best thing to do is if you're brand new, finding something that attracts you to. Like at the time, if I were to buy let me get a little bit theoretical,
sure,
if I can for you. So if I bought when I looked at the Dragon magazine and saw the Space Wolves and the Rhino or whatever, I probably would have been a Space Wolves player right then. If I'd bought at the convention when I saw they were fighting over the Dreadnought, and I thought the Dreadnought looked so cool, I may have been a Chaos Space Marine player, mm-hmm. From then on. It wasn't until I got to really pour over the books and I was like, oh, okay, I want to be an Eldar player.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had Space Elves at any stage of the game up until this point. And heck, but when I got down to the game store, I'm like, I'd like to buy some Eldar. He's like, we don't have any Eldar, but I've got these Harlequins.
Yeah.
Like, so then I became a Harlequin player. I played Harlequins for, I played Harlequins for 2 years until I'm like, you know what? I said, I would like to try something different. And then I started reading more. I'm like, oh, these Blood Angels sound really awesome. There's so much going. I still like the Blood Angels. I think they're struggling right now rules wise, but that kind of stuff is kind of cyclical.
It ebbs and flows, yeah. So when you first started off, you were just kind of playing with friends, and then you said, when you came back into it, you had a group. When did you start to kind of move outside of the group, the people you were playing? Like what was that first event like? When did you start kind of moving outside of just a social group?
First, I got to start with a bit of a joke. I remember because I met my wife and we got married, and I was not a guy super into 40K, which, what? We're still people.
Sure.
But anyway, I also, like, you can, I have always struggled with, and it's not really anything, there's nothing wrong with playing Warhammer 40K, but I have always felt a bit embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah.
I don't know why, it's just a personal thing for me. Like, I know I've got two wonderful role models of nerddom sharing the show with me, Paul and Riven. And those guys, they let their freak flag fly. They don't care, like whatever. Yeah. This is the thing I like, and it's taken me a long time to get over that, or if I have.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was, getting back into it, I said to my wife, "Don't worry, I want to, paint a couple models, maybe play a game or two with my friend, and I'm not going to be one of those convention guys, though.
Yeah.
Don't." And like 18 months later, I was at the LBO, and honestly, I think the way it happened was because I was, pretty insular about it. I played with friends I knew. I discovered podcasting, so like podcasts, as a means to carrying on this conversation I was constantly having, basically with myself and a couple other people. And then suddenly I was just filled with. I was just always listening to podcasts. Like I'd listen to your show. I listened to just every show that I could that was listenable, which I have a pretty low bar for that. At that point, it was basically, can I make out what you're saying?
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I was listening to a lot of Signals, Chapter Tactics when it came around. The Forge the Narrative guys, of course. You guys build a better community, and they were all very tournament focused. And so the second a tournament opportunity showed up around here in Toronto, and there really were basically none at that point, which is not that long. This is like 2015, 2016. Everyone was down on tournaments. Like tournament play was kind of taboo within 40K. And there was one big one around here, Astronomicon, and I never went to that. It was sort of a hobby-focused one. But I went to an RTT, and I really enjoyed it. And I was, again, my brain was just always filled with these tournament goers. And I am the guy, Reese and Frankie started podcasting to try and reach because, I just really wanted to go to these tournaments. So I think the first big tournament I went to was Capital City Bloodbath in Ottawa.
Okay.
Which I heard about through their podcast. And then after that, in the fall, I got out to the Michigan GT. And I even went so far as to somehow get down to the Glass City GT in Toledo, Ohio, and then I went to the LVO in 2017 would be my first LVO.
Okay. So you took that? Did you go by yourself to these events, or did you convince a buddy to go along with you?
Now, I got a Warhammer wife. His name's Conrad Motika. He's also we grew up together, and he's a friend when we were kids. We actually basically lost touch, by the way. Friends are kind of contextual in a lot of ways, but he was the guy who said, "I'm in."
Nice.
And so he's been with me every step aside from podcasting. Really, he's he's gone to almost all the same events. He was on the Team Canada this year. He was the coach last year. He goes to stuff that I don't get to, but generally speaking, if I'm at an event, he's at it too. So he's been a great friend along the way.
Yeah.
And then also, like, the thing that I did not expect, I guess because I was too cool for Warhammer, was just how many people I'd meet and genuinely like. And like, wait a second, there's like a whole lot. This is a really great way to meet friends, which is, again, another thing that people in podcasts will tell you.
Yeah.
Just how going to events is you meet all these really cool people who play this game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the same is true about other things that people go to conventions for. And I think that's really one of the unique qualities of Warhammer is, aside from the fact that, it can capture your imagination in a million different ways. It's the fact that it is an in-person tactile game that requires two people to play. And so as a result, the biggest surprise, and probably the thing that's kept me so incredibly engaged with it is and I used to roll my eyes at this all the time, but it is the community in a lot of ways.
It does sound cheesy, but it is so true. And when you realize it, you're like, oh, yeah, because it's not a very big community. It really isn't. And you see the same faces over and over again, really. And you just recognize them. And then you see your friends like a couple times a year, depending on the event you go to. So that's why the Las Vegas Open is such a massive spectacle. I just don't think I could ever miss it because it's just where everyone goes.
Oh. And yeah, I mean, people used to, a lot of the shows would talk about Adepticon that way. These starry eyes, because I think in a lot of ways Adepticon was that first event that everyone went to.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, and they get dressed up in silly costumes and did all that. But literally, I mean, there were a handful of things, and then Nova after that. And like this year, I was this close to getting Nova. And when I didn't get to go, it wasn't because I wasn't bummed about not playing Warhammer. I was legitimately bummed because, like, oh man, there's like all these people there. I won't get to go get drunk in the rooftop bar or whatever and have a good time. Like all those things. That was the fun part, and I had delusions of grandeur about the town art running around and shooting over the L's and stuff, which everyone has to have. Yeah, well, yeah. But even ETC when it was going on, like I've had the opportunity to travel real far, like over to the UK and get to play. Although it was a miserable experience that I've described on the show. Yeah, I got to play at the ETC, and the ETC is an even bigger example of people coming from all over the planet to that one place, and that is the one place they all go. Yeah. And so this year, like, although I by no means would ever want to play in the ETC again, I was legitimately bummed. Like, oh, I'm not going to get to see those guys because they live tens of thousands of miles away, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Now we should point out that Val Heffelfinger is not your real name. For those of you the people that don't know. And so that is your 40K handle that you've kind of going on. And so I guess, is that still part of wanting to have an online 40K presence, but keeping it separate from your personal life?
It's blurring more and more.
Yeah, because over time it's going to come down. The walls are a little bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, to be honest with you, like I barely go on my legitimate Facebook ever. I go there and it's almost like I don't relate to a lot of the stuff going on. Like it's a bunch of people from high school I haven't talked to, and 5 years removed from the last time I followed their lives passively.
Got it.
but yeah, there is a I think I would consider a legitimate reason for Val Heffelfinger, which is just for Google protection purposes.
Sure.
I started actually in student theater, and to this day, when you Google my actual name, you're going to get a lot of bad theater reviews, and then a little bit about my profession. And I do work with my wife, and it's actually her name on the door. So it's her brand, and I just wanted to keep those things separate because if you're going to be judging me, I'd rather you judge it on some other credentials first. And if I get to know you, you can find out about my weird, boring hobby that you won't care about anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if you share your name with if it's a brand. It totally makes sense to want to have separate that way. I work for a tech company, so it's been over time, and people ask me, like, I'll go to, I'm like, what do you do this weekend? Oh, I'm going to Las Vegas. Oh, what are you doing that for? I'm like, I'm going to a gaming convention. What's all that? And then the discussion happens, and then the whole thing comes out, and most of the time they're just like fascinated by that. How long has that game been around? I'm like, 30 years. I mean, it's still a very niche thing. Not a lot of people really even know about it.
I usually prep whenever someone either finds out about it or sort of discovers that I play 40K or whatever, and they ask a question. I'll often say, well, how much do you want to know?
Yeah.
So this is a pretty deep rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And then usually it's 2 or 3 sentences and the person's cross-eyed, and it's over. And then, like, there's legitimately, and this is something you learn in sales, I think, is there's nothing more boring to another person than your hobbies.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a weird thing they do to fill time and be interested in. Sometimes it's watching TV, sometimes it's playing with minis, sometimes it's quilting. Who knows? There's a billion things you can do with the little bits of time that you get. So, whatever suits your fancy, go for it, and don't be offended. Don't be offended if no one really cares, and also don't be too worried that other people do care, because they probably don't.
It's interesting when you talked about hobby, and there's all kinds of hobbies out there, but as you mentioned earlier, it does kind of consume you. I mean, it goes beyond just a mere hobby. When you have a room dedicated
lifestyle,
to things.
Bro.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle. Yeah, exactly. It just takes over everything.
I got like 400. Well, that's an understatement. $500-$600 of podcasting equipment.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I remember arguing with people about 40K. Like in the 7th edition days, there's this concept of the great casual on the hill who lived in an ivory tower, in an idyllic utopia. And then there were all these evil tournament players ruining their world. And I said, if there's a game that you play in which you have ever contemplated buying an airbrush, an incredibly hard to use tool, and mastering that thing, you are not casual about anything.
No,
there's no to get to, it's hilarious. The barrier of entry for one game of 40K is a mile high for most people to even comprehend. Like, in order to even get to the point where you can put something on a table, you have to build a table.
Yeah.
You got to make houses and stuff, or at least improvise something. It's to get to the point where you're playing the level of 40K we take for granted now at most tournaments.
Yeah,
because an incredible amount of work.
Yeah,
and also it's not cheap. It's there are more expensive hobbies, as Carl Tuttle will point out.
Sure.
But this is a pretty expensive hobby nonetheless, right? So it's something that like I said, those people who get into it really get into it, and I don't believe too much in the myth of the casual 40K player.
Yeah, because if you're playing 40K, like you said, there's a commitment to be had. I mean, somebody who just buys into the box set, they walk into the GW store, they see it, they go, "This is interesting." They buy the box set, they open it up, and it's a bunch of sprues. And if they've never built plastic models before, they're like, "What is all this?"
And think of how many gut checks you got to get through, right? Oh my God, these are all in pieces. They're not painted. Oh, jeez. Okay, I guess I'll go to the store and get some glue.
Yeah.
Come home.
Yeah.
How am I going to get these things out of here? I guess I need some clippers.
Yeah.
All right, so I get some clippers. And on and on and on. It is, and it's no wonder too, because you get pot committed at some point. People talk to me like, "Oh, AOS is so good." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like I am way too invested in 40K.
Yeah.
To even contemplate playing something else. Like if I play a video game, I feel guilty about it because it's like, geez, I could be doing the 1 million other things that I've had planned for 40K. You know, like it's like it just gets you.
Now you talked about the parts of the hobby. You talked about yourself as a competitive gamer. What else, is that the main focus of your hobby, or what are the other things you really value aside from playing competitive? Because you talked about playing, board games and that idea of competitiveness, and not in a bad. So many people think of it's a bad thing to be competitive, but I think that playing this game, it's fun. It's really, really fun, and you really strike a balance of being competitive can be very, very fun, and that's what's awesome about playing competitive.
Well, when people hear competitive, I think what they start doing in their mind is they start thinking, okay, what is this person willing to compromise to win?
Yeah.
And they'll compromise. They'll do something. They'll compromise something good to get a win result. And that's not really the case. And I know not everyone feels that way, but I think that with that connotation, that's what they're doing. Like and that's where you get the whole win at all cost. Like, oh, I don't play whack players. He's just a whack player. Like, not a whack player. I just want, not saying they're saying that again about me specifically, but sometimes the person that you're describing is not a win at all cost player. They're not going to try to compromise anything. They're just going to they're going to take advantage of an advantageous rule or an aggressively pointed unit.
Yeah.
Or they may really shrewdly play the moving their models in the various fight phases.
Yeah.
In a game just by knowing how to do that correctly.
And that's just knowing the nuances of the game and being experienced at it, really.
So competitive is, so you mentioned you asked, how do I turn it off or what?
Yeah. Do you turn it off or is it something, do you play casual games? Is it something that you can,
I prefer casual games.
Really? Okay.
I like to play casual lists. Let me see. I prefer to sit around and play with some buddies who do not have the same goals as me.
Yeah.
They don't want to be a top player. They don't want to win. They just want to go and hang out and have a good time. Sometimes they may want to travel. Sometimes they don't. They just want to take it or leave it, kind of pick it up, put it down. But they love playing with certain types of models or certain armies. And I don't want to tell those guys, that 1,000 points that you are really in love with in your army, put it away.
Yeah.
Don't play it. Like, what on earth are you doing? I'm not going to tell them that. I'd rather spend 3-4 hours with that person who's a friend, and just roll dice and talk about stuff and whatever. Talk about the times we rolled sixes or I rolled a bunch of ones or something. I don't know. Drink some whiskey and make a night of it. That's so I prefer casual lists, but still trying to win.
Sure.
That's another thing with the whole casual gamer type stuff. It's like, everyone wants to win the game that they're playing.
I agree.
So few people really could take or leave what the outcome is, even if they say it. What sometimes I think when they say that, what they mean is, I don't know how to change the outcome, so I'm just going to pretend. Which is not even bad either, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in a negative way.
Yeah.
They haven't poured over the rule book. They're there hanging out with somebody else who's really into the game, and they're humoring them. That's fine too.
Yeah. I love the idea of I like to play with casual lists. You still want to win. You still want to do the things you know how to do to win, but it's nice when you take a list and the pressure's off. You're not in a tournament, you're not in an event. Tournaments are awesome and fun too, but sometimes it's nice to it's not just roll dice. I'm playing a casual list, and this is a different environment, and really the goal here is to have fun. I still want to win, but ultimately I just want to have fun with my friend.
Yeah, but when I go to a tournament, it's all business. Like, if you see me at a tournament with a list, it's because I think it's going to be the best list.
Sure.
And I just need to play the best I can, and that means being efficient with the movement phase, being calculated in the pile-in and consolidation phases, and and communicating with the opponent. Look, I got 7 inches of movement here. It puts me just right here, but the model won't necessarily fit, but it should fit. How do you want to handle it? Like those are kind of, I'm not trying to get over on you. I need to figure out what your perception of what's happening right now is. And so we don't have some type of feel bad experience the next time it comes up and it matters.
Yeah. Talking through intent is really, really important. I've found it just clears things up so much. It just makes things so much easier.
I mean, that's the difference in between, how I would play normally or in here in the basement. I don't let people keep score either.
Yeah.
We can talk about it, a bad beat or whatever, but it's never like, oh, you lost 4 times and whatever.
Yeah. That's fair. You, what kind of games do you like to play the most? Are competitive sort of match play games things that you like the most? I mean, really, if it comes down to it, and you could play like one game, what are your favorite kinds of games of 40K?
My favorite kind of game is put 6 objectives down on the table and draw your Maelstrom cards.
Interesting.
That's like my favorite type of game because it, and then I make a list that usually is very Highlander in its style. So I'll run like one of everything. I'll have 3 detachments. I'll have a Coven detachment, a Cabal detachment, and a Witch Cult detachment, and I'll basically play like a raiding party. I'll have like, 1 unit of Cabalites, 1 of Witches, 1 of, Coven, like, racks or whatever. And that's my favorite style of game, is just having a little bit of everything and just playing with all the different units that I have access to.
Got it.
And then playing Maelstrom, because you never know what Drunken Commander is going to tell you to do.
Yeah.
And, and it just makes you use those units in very cool, diverse ways that, you might have not thought of.
Why is it about Maelstrom, you think, that appeals to you?
I like Maelstrom because it challenges me as a player to adapt to changing conditions on the tabletop. So it forces you to become a lot more flexible in your thinking, and a lot less all or nothing in the actions that you take on the table.
Got it. Okay. So, oftentimes when you draw Maelstrom, you're like, oh, it's hold objective 6 and oh, looks like my opponent has that in his deployment zone. You think of that as more like, oh, this is interesting. What do I have to do now? Like, I did not get a very good draw. My opponent got a really great draw. What is this forcing me to do? You just like the idea that the conditions change enough that you constantly have to think about, okay, now it's been reset. Now what do I have to do?
Exactly. In that sort of scenario, there's 2 very simple solutions. Most people get frustrated with the cards, which they have no control over. And they go, I'm going to lose because of the cards.
Yeah.
And that's probably like just as bad as blaming the dice about winning or losing.
Yeah.
Yes, the cards come out. Like, it's random.
Yeah.
Then again, there's only 36 cards.
Yeah.
So if you draw, defend objective 6, which is on the other side of the table, and your opponent has it, you don't have to keep it in your hand and try and score it. You can redraw it. You can throw it out at the end of the turn. If you get none of the cards you can score, then you hide. You don't have to do anything. It's not like ITC where you have to kill something or you have to hold something. You just don't do anything. Like, move away, hide, like throw a card away and try again next turn.
Yeah.
Just prevent your opponent from getting points.
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of different ways to approach like a bad situation, but I love how just not knowing what's going to come up at you forces your brain to think in different ways.
Got it. What are some of your favorite moments in this game? Like, in this hobby, you've been in it for, since first edition, really. What are some of your favorite moments?
I had my toe in first edition.
We'll say second then.
Yeah, I mean, it basically was like trailed into second. That was
first edition was a role-playing game, really, for the most. I mean, it was more than that, but it was, it had a real heavy role-playing influence, I think.
Well, okay. I mean, I can go with the obvious, something like a cheesy obvious one.
Sure.
Like the first grand tournament I ever won.
Sure. No, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it was. In the first grand tournament I ever went to, I actually did not have the greatest experience there. I actually was you didn't know, eyes were, wide as saucers and didn't know how to behave or didn't know how people were going to behave. I knew how to behave. I thought sportsmanship was going to rule all. Yeah. Turns out some people just didn't care.
Yeah.
But I did meet some of my greatest friends in the hobby, the people that at that tournament. They're still friends to this day. So that's a good moment to have that takeaway. And and then to get to, hang out and have those new people in your life the whole way. And then the first great tournament I ever won was in Baltimore, which was basically like the U.S. Nationals at the time. And that was a really good experience. Some of the best like moments. Death Company used to have a Blood Rage, like in 3rd edition. That was in my opinion a great edition. I really enjoyed it, and that's when I really started coming into my own with Blood Angels. And if I can tell a story where I'm not the hero.
Sure.
Of the story is when I didn't walk away, but there was like a period of time where I didn't play maybe for like a year or so. It's not 40K. It was after 3rd edition was kind of in its swing, and my buddy convinced me to come out and play. And I'm like, cool, I'll come. And I brought like what was my 2nd edition Blood Angel army, and I'm talking about I got a Devastator squad with like 2 las cannons. I got a 10-man tac squad. I got a 5-man tac squad. I got a couple of scouts, just a hodgepodge of stuff that worked really well in previous editions. Mm-hmm. And this guy shows up with all star cannons and absolutely walked a mud hole in me. To the point I thought, I was like, you have to be cheating.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I've known this guy for 15 years at this point. I knew that he wasn't, but like I feel like something's not right.
Yeah, when it feels so imbalanced, you're like, okay, this can't be right.
My star cannons, 3-shot, -2 AP or whatever, 3 damage apiece or something. I think it was 1 damage, but I don't know. But it was murdering me. All my 1 moon models were being picked up with extreme prejudice. Yeah, so that was a fun. It was a wake up call.
Yeah,
that was like, holy crap! I have been away for too long. Things have changed. I must now, get back into.
Got it. So you got kind of an Eye of the Tiger moment there. You showed up and you got your hand, your butt handed. You're like, okay, wait a minute, I gotta get caught up here because you said
I gotta get back to the gym.
Yeah. Why were you out for that year? Was it just life got in the way, or you just kind of switched on to other things, or? I'm
really not sure. Looking back now, I'm not sure. There was a pretty impressive run that I had for a while when won a bunch of straight games, and I think it was the edition change, and then maybe that the Dark Eldar weren't exactly what I wanted. It may have been like some of my the friends that I was playing with the most may have also kind of taken a bit of a back seat.
Oh, got it. You talked about the fact that you went to the GT and you've met players, and there's still players that are people in your life. How many would you say, like all the events you've gone to, how many people have you sort of become friends with over time just by going to these events and just by being in this hobby?
That's the best part of it. I mean, like my gaming club, We're the Wrong Way Kids, is comprised of 90%, 95% traveling players.
Yeah.
Like there's almost like no one local. It's people that we hang out with at conventions.
Got it.
And decided this was a good idea.
Yeah.
To band together in a club.
Yeah. And so you go to those big conventions and you're seeing them again for, do you see them like maybe a couple times a year tops or 3 times or whatever, but
it's actually, there's a couple different, groups of people.
Yeah.
There are people that you see at these conventions and you recognize them, from you saw them last year at the same place. You saw them, 6 months ago at another convention. You don't know them.
Yeah.
You just know what's up. These are familiar faces. You can give them a what's up in the hallway. You give them a fist pound when you're walking through. And, there's that kind of folks. And then there's people that you interact with in between the events. And honestly, I may even see some of them more than I see people that are locally because, I'm working or got kids and stuff here at the house.
Yeah.
And when it's I don't go across town to play very often.
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably go to tournaments, like travel somewhere outside to play 40K in another city more than I go to my local store to play.
Got it.
LVO, there's the...
is there any other favorite moments you want to highlight before we jump into the flip side of that? It's
really... There's a ton.
Yeah.
Just things along the way of winning tight games, playing against, because we have people, that are sometimes known as the let's say villains or whatever. Beating those people always kind of fun.
Yeah.
They're characters, right? It's all characters stuff, and sometimes we create our own narratives.
Yeah, they're like the wrestling heels, right? The bad guy wrestlers.
Yeah. And then starting the podcast. I mean, Forge Narrative is 6 years old.
Yeah. Wow. And you're almost up to what, 300 episodes now?
Yeah, 300. I just released episode 299.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you're one of the not the originals, but you were right at like second gen kind of podcasting for 40K. I mean, and you've been doing it for a long time. Why do you still do it? What is it? What is it given to you? What is it something that you still enjoy doing, or why do you still do it?
Being able to talk to people all over the world. I mean, it's everywhere in the world we get messages from folks, and being able to interact with them and knowing they have the same struggles. It's about, relation. Like the show, it's just like this, conversational. We just talk.
Yeah.
I mean, with a slant towards competitive play, or at least telling people what's going to be out there. You may not want to do it, but you're going to see it. So figure it out. So just being able to have that type of information exchange with people from all over the world, it's nice.
What are some of your favorite moments in 40K?
Oh man, some great stories. So one of my favorite stories of all time was when we recreated the Charge of the Light Brigade, my brother and I, and he put something like 10 hammerheads on one side of the long table, and I had my whole Black Templar army on the other side, and I had to run up at him while he shot me the whole game to see how much stuff would stay alive by the time I got there. And it was my Empress Champion that made it to the end and blew up 2 hammerheads before he died. And that was like the coolest, like most silly scenario that we'd ever come up with.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that's going to stay with me for forever.
Yeah, it's like the ending of The Last Samurai when they're charging and the machine guns come out. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was very, very memorable. There's another great memory when my brother's Kroot, there was like little 5-man or 10-man unit of Kroot, murdered all 5 of my Terminators because I rolled 5 ones and they all just died.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of thing I remember fondly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the odd, like, one last cannon hit, wounds, and blows up a monolith. Like, those were, like, the best things ever to happen in game.
Those completely improbable events where you just kind of have to laugh then.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Like, those are the most memorable ones.
Yeah.
Where, you're like, oh, I have to take 14 invulnerable saves, and you roll them all, and they're all saved. And you're like, oh, my goodness, this is incredible.
Yeah, deep down that's unlikely to happen again. But it's funny when it gets streaky. Like, it's funny when your dice get streaky. Like, they go all or nothing sometimes. You're just like, well, what are you going to do? Just got to write it out.
Yeah, and you just have to, like, just remember it's a game and just kind of sort of create that narrative in your head.
Yeah, interesting. Create a narrative in your head. So are you doing that even when you're playing, like, like match play games or something like that?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I was just at Attack X, and my opponent, we were just playing. It was fun. It was a very fun game. My last match of the tournament, and I kept on saying yes. So I'm going to shoot my Phantasm Grenade Launcher at this guy or whatever. And he's like, I don't need to know the name of your gun, man. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, most people don't care. They just care. What's the strength? What's the damage? What's the AP?
But you don't understand. It's on his backpack.
Yeah.
He shoots out the back.
Yeah, it's shooting, like, superheated, hallucinating gas at you. They're like, I don't care. What's the strength? 1. What's the AP? 0.
Why are you shooting this again? Well, let me tell you.
Well, last time I did a wound to a tank.
So I guess when it comes down to the game of, just in 40K in general, events, are they things that you try to go to often? Is attending an event something that is important to you?
Yes, I do. I try to go to, like, this month especially, I've been going to an event almost once every 2 weeks.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you doing that even when you were, you talked about when you were younger and you'd ride, you'd spend an hour to get to the store to play. And is it just something that you enjoy playing with other people? Is that part of 40K for you?
It is. When I was younger, like there'd be one event every 2 months or 3 months. Like it wasn't as popular as it is nowadays.
Yeah.
But as 40K is now turned into my like full-time job.
Yeah.
Being out there amongst the community, talking, meeting, greeting people, and just having a toe into the meta and understanding like where the game is going and what sort of lists we're seeing. It's not only stuff that I enjoy because I love going and playing games for a day and meeting people. It also keeps me grounded and humble at the same time. Because a lot of the times, being in a position where you're like, I've been playing for so long and I know how this works and that works. Sometimes you just need to get your shit pushed in to just be like, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Like I still need to learn. I can still improve, and it just keeps you real, right?
Yeah.
And keeps you honest.
Yeah.
And that's why I like going to big events, because you never know what you're going to run into, and somebody thought of something cooler than what you thought of.
Yeah.
And it's always cool to learn and go, oh my goodness, that is a cool combo, or that is a cool like relic or whatever, and I never have seen it used in that context.
Yeah.
And you go away with it with learning something new that then inspires you to do something with it, and inspire others to do it as well.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite moments from 40K?
I mean, as far as like tournament glory goes, the first Warzone Atlanta I got to go to was just an amazingly good time.
Okay.
Because that was another one too that was, again, in this world of podcasting, I heard about that, and I realized when I got there, I was like, man, this is just a regular tournament. And it was, they just did a really good job of selling the fact that they had a waiter walking around. It was just were fabulous. It was a really good sales job. And they also did a thing where they made it, whether or not it's on purpose, they made it very exclusive. So, like people who had bought tickets got first crack at it. So it was one of the first tournaments. I don't know if you remember, tournaments didn't used to sell out in 5 minutes.
No, not at all. No.
But one of them did, and it was Warzone Atlanta. So it was kind of like it was sort of a hard thing to get at. Anyway, I assume at the time TPM was still doing stuff with Warzone, and I think it was TPM, and I was just messaging him, every couple minutes. No, I mean, every couple days with funny jokes about trying to get to the top of the wait list. And I don't know if I got there legitimately or not, but I did get a ticket. And I went and played Orcs. And this is Index 40K 8th edition.
Okay.
And I had my Gargantuan Squiggoth Peaches, named after my dog. And it was the first time I ever went 3-0. And I've still never gone 4-0 because you play a real player at 4-0.
Yep. Yeah, you do. Yes, you do.
And I got to play. And I blank on his bloody name every time he comes up. But he's a really good, wonderful player, and he was playing, this endless Poxwalker stuff. I lost to him, and I'd never gone 4-1 either. So, I was coming in, I was like really down in my dumps, and it was Adam Abramowitz was actually paired against me, and he had just started the best general.
Okay.
So this was the sort of he'd always said that he was planning to win the one after this one.
Oh, that's right.
And so I get paired against him, and he's had a long one. It's day 2, and he's a little worse for wear. And then we set up, and my Gargantuan Squig Peaches, and I just learned a bunch of things. I line up my Squig, and I'm like, I'm just going to play this, cagey. I'm going to take him on, because he was running like 3s, the big Space Marine flyer things. Storm
Ravens, yeah.
It was a real mixed Imperium force when that was something. Right, and it had some Blood Angel stuff, and it was pretty scary looking. Bunch of guard, and I lined up, and I saw, and we were on the pointy Dawn of War, and I saw that like Gilliman, who was chilling in the back lines, was just kind of like a little bit too up, he was a little bit too close to the front 2 lines, and I said I'm going for it, and I just moved the guy, the 12 inches, and then I charged, and I needed like a 10 or something. And I'm pretty sure I just made the 10. And the big Squig sort of got in, and I got his tusk on a guardsman in the front row. And then on my pylon, I was able to sort of swing this gigantic dinosaur so that his tusk was within an inch of Gilliman. And I put all the attacks into Gilliman, and I wounded Gilliman I don't know, 4 times. It was a pretty good roll. Or maybe I wounded him 3 times. At any rate, he failed all of his 3-up invulns. And, rolled like 4 6s for damage or whatever. And he was super dead. And then he tried to get him back up on a 4-up, failed it, re-rolled it with a CP and failed that. So I killed Gilliman with a giant dinosaur. That's probably my favorite 40k moment against Adam Bromwitz.
That is pretty good. That was the first. So I'm assuming you won the game.
Yeah, and I was surprised Adam actually played it out. I had someone do the math on it, but like the series of rolls I made was just stupid. I should have used that luck on winning the lottery or something like that. Like it was dumb, but also awesome. And and I guess that's actually another fun thing about I don't know if people realize this, but people get addicted to gambling. Random outcomes.
Yeah.
You know? And so, the most exciting ones are when something with a low probability of happening happens. And that creates, all kinds of feel-good chemicals in your body and a positive association. And it's completely out of your control, but it's still exciting when dice rolls happen and they happen your way, even though they're completely arbitrary, random number generators. That for some reason humans really love the outcome of a 6-sided dice.
It's the when something unexpectedly pleasant happens. There's something about 40k in that there's random elements in it, but there's a lot of random elements in it. I mean, it can get really swingy. Like there's some really improbable stuff that can happen just because of the D6 system. And I guess I never even thought about the idea that the dice element in the random elements just combine with everything else. I think that's just one more thing that adds to the kind of the addiction of the game.
Yeah. And there you go. Yeah,
that's good insight.
Insight. That's what old Hef brings.
That's what you bring. What's another favorite moment of yours before we get into the worst moments? What's another favorite moment of yours?
Favorite moment? It's top of mind, so I'll say it. That weekend, I'm driving home. Well, actually, no, I'll do a different one because actually the first podcast I got to be on was one called Inches and Cubes.
Okay.
Local Toronto podcast. There's a bunch of guys who actually exhibited a lot of the tournament hating. They were tournament haters. But I also noted that they were not casual at all about 40K. I felt like maybe they just didn't like losing.
I see. Yeah.
That kind. And so I was messaging. They were local. They are local in Toronto. And so I reached out to them and I was like, look, man, you guys are always ragging on 40K and especially, tournament players and tournaments. And I think you just don't understand it. I think, I'd like to come on the show and talk to you about it. And they accepted. And I went to their basement where they recorded. And it was the first show I got to go on. And basically we talked about, some of the stuff I've touched on. But, essentially I felt at the time that actually tournaments were the most easygoing way to play 40K because, the table stakes are established in advance. You know what you're getting into.
The conversation has been had. You don't have to have a conversation. It's there.
Exactly. And it's actually really hard. And I discovered this actually in a league with their gaming group, which is called Hogtown 40K. It's actually pretty hard to level set correctly as to what, one person's OP is, another person's, it's totally normal. So it's really, really hard to actually, try and find a fair balance in the game that you're trying to win.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you leave winning completely out of the equation and it's a true narrative, which I don't think in the history of 40K has probably ever happened. It's not like D&D, right? Like it's, as soon as you remove the there used to be sort of a DM element in Rogue Trader. Yeah. As soon as that person was gone, now it's player versus player. It's not about, it's about the outcome of the game, I think. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anywho, so we have this great conversation, and none other than the great Pablo Martinez, Chapter Tactics fame, heard this show, and he liked it so much that he invited me on, and that was the first big podcast I got to be on. Was Chapter Tactics.
Chapter Tactics, yeah,
and that was awesome because I got to that actually sparked a great friendship with a really cool guy who lives in San Diego, who also works with 2 of my Warhammer heroes. And some others, and like that, and that meant that when I went to the LVO the next time, like there were he was there, and that I got to go on stream. There were all these cool things that were knock-ons from that. Yeah. And also when he was looking to invite people on the show, he invited Sean Morgan, who's an actual 40K commentator for 10 years. I don't even know.
Yeah.
The late great Jeff Robinson.
Yeah.
And for some reason me. So I thought that was incredible that I got to be invited onto the Frontline Gaming's other podcast. Like,
yeah,
again, it's funny because we said earlier this very small community, and the podcasters, we probably talk to thousands, maybe Tuttle probably talks to tens of thousands. In the grand scheme of things, these aren't massive, crazy numbers, but each one of those people is an actual person, and pretty damn invested in this stuff if they're listening to us talk about it. So
for sure. I mean, if you're doing what we do and we broadcast it out, or you're listening to it, like you said, you're invested.
Yeah,
you're definitely invested.
And so getting a podcast because it's definitely a huge highlight.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Let's talk about what's one of the worst moments of 40K for you.
So there are some personalities out there.
Sure.
And they don't try to make it easy to interact with them.
Yeah.
And those, and any time that, and it's in the minority. It's really, really, I don't want to make it sound like that it's out there a lot, but it's very much in the minority. But when you're in that situation, you start to question things like, okay, man, it took me 4 hours to fly here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the way you phrased it was very diplomatic in that there are some people that don't make it easy to interact with them.
Yeah.
And that's very true. I mean, we do have some real personalities that play this game, and you're right. It's just so, it's rare. It's really rare, but they do exist.
Yeah. Or, another thing is when you're playing against somebody who clearly just doesn't respect the hobby as much as you do. And I'm not saying they have to have you can tell. I feel like you can just tell.
Yeah.
They don't have to have the best looking army. It's not about that.
Yeah.
But you can tell when somebody tried.
You can tell the effort.
Yeah, you really can. You see some of it, because even if they're not good painters, sometimes they make little changes to their army, or they may have put a white helmet on the sergeant or something. There's just when you do that kind of stuff, it's nonverbal cues that you're on the same page with what's happening as your opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're dialed in. You care.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because you at this point you care a lot about 40K.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Fair point.
I mean, it's how much, because it was on another show. I mean, 40K can consume your existence. You could read a Black Library novel before you go to bed. You can wake up, start making lists. You can listen to podcasts at work. You can, you can do a lot of stuff. 40K really can take over a big chunk of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It absolutely can.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we're recording at night right now, and I record at night to not disrupt my family.
Sure.
I mean, they're so supportive of me. And now, even back in the very beginning, like when I started FTN, I was in grad school. Just had a new baby. I was not necessarily. I was new to the job that I was. I mean, I wasn't like new in career or whatever, but I was not too far along in the job that I'm still at now. But
yeah,
and I was like, are they going to let me do this? Are they going to let me get the equipment? Let's a strong word. Is it going to be fine if I do this? What kind of tension is it going to put and obligation on these people, other people, my family?
Sure.
If I do this. And so I just made the decision, like, I'm only going to record at night when they're asleep. I mean, it's past their bedtime. It's past my bedtime. But it's not going to get in the way of anybody's life. It's only being in a position on myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's a good compromise, because if you let it could take over a lot, and there are lives outside of 40K that you have to tend to, and you should. It's part of enjoying, having a full featured life, basically. It's
my wife. She's I think for a while sometimes she thought she was a Warhammer widow.
Yeah.
It's not like that though, but she is very supportive, but I try not to make it too much.
Yeah.
I don't talk about my army list that I'm building at dinner.
Yeah.
That's really fair. But it would probably be fine in certain contexts.
Yeah, sure. What are some of your worst moments in 40K?
I want to say most of the worst times I've had in the hobby has to do with like hobby groups sort of deteriorating because of like animosity between members, and I think that's never fun, when you have like you're friends with everybody, but this person doesn't get along with that person because of one thing that they did, or, something that was probably like not really on purpose, but it came across the wrong way. Yeah. And then they're not talking to each other. And so game night's ruined because now it's only you with either one person or the other person, and like that is probably the worst part of 40K, being that I've been like in different cities and part of different gaming groups. I've seen a variety of different forms of that, and it's never fun.
Yeah. Because the groups kind of come together, and people don't really know each other, but they get excited, they start to play, and then eventually you're just around each other long enough that someone's going to rub something the wrong way, and the splinters kind of happen. Yeah,
it happens, and eventually, like, we're all human, and scars mend or whatever, like, and things get better. It's just during that period of time, it's never really fun to be in that sort of situation.
Do you find yourself to be kind of the mediator in a lot of these things?
I not really. I'm not like the kind of person that enjoys like the he said she said sort of situation. Yeah. I don't like putting myself in the middle of something like that, and I prefer to stay out of it. Yeah. However, I don't really take sides most of the time. Like, I understand where people come from, and I'll try and stay as neutral as possible. Yeah. Regardless of the situation.
What's a worst moment for 40K for you? What's a moment that was not fun?
Well, I mean, I don't want to repeat myself too much on the show, but like, first of all, I mean, put things in context. There've never really been any bad times for me. I mean, that's good. You see it online all the time, where it does seem like people are upset. I don't know if people are just really loose with their keyboards or what, but like sometimes people take this serious, right? So. Yeah. They wear it on their sleeves like it's a personal attack when something doesn't go right in the or how rules are written or whatever, or they feel the need to cheat, or they get upset about someone cheating, etc., etc. I've had very few poor game experiences in tournaments. Period. Mm-hmm. I would barely need one hand to count the games, and I honestly would struggle to remember them. I know they've existed. Yeah. But I've had a lot of like games, but as far as like, oh, I'm so mad, like that just basically hasn't happened to me. Yeah. As far as a miserable experience, my experience at the ETC, I guess now it's more than a year ago, but that was not fun. It was not fun for a number of reasons, and mostly it wasn't fun because I almost didn't get there, and it just sort of, and once I did get there, because of the passport and the shoe incident, once I did get there, I was pretty frazzled, and I guess I just didn't realize that I was, and I just played the worst 40K I've ever played. Yeah. In a situation where you can't really do that because every single person you're playing knows what they're doing. Like there's no gimmies. Literally no cup. There's no gimmies at the ETC. Yeah. I was. There's been one. It was me. And I literally lost just about every game in deployment, and it took me until day 3 until I had 2 games where I didn't. And it's not like, and it wasn't anything that if I had, if those were battle reports and I was watching, as I often do with Ben Bonner, B-Bone over on Tabletop Tactics, I'm just screaming. Oh, I know. About stuff. Yeah. And I'm off messaging him. Like if I could have been me screaming and messaging at me, like I would have been able to. Like it was all very obviously bad ideas that I was doing. I was just out on my feet. And and as a result, and the team itself, I don't know, it just sucks. I mean, like I was playing for it's Warhammer, but I mean at the same time, still it's pretty awesome thing to get to go to Europe and play this game, and it was just miserable. It was a miserable grind. Yeah, and it wasn't anyone else's fault, and I just wouldn't mind having that one back, but whatever, it's all good. Yeah, if that's literally the greatest hardship I experienced in life, I have had. Had a pretty good go.
I have a very, very, my boss at work is a very, very optimistic person, and she would say that, there's no mistakes, there's only learning opportunities. So really, when you think about it, you've learned, right? And it's, like I said, if that's the worst thing that can happen to you, I don't know. I mean, it's a story.
Yeah, it is. And the passport and the shoe thing. I remember thinking if I didn't get that plane, and actually get there, which ironically, my presence would have been the same as them. Me not being there would have literally worked out to be the same as them playing with 5 players. That's how bad I was. They could have played a man down. It wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah.
But I always said that, like, if I didn't make that flight, no one would have gotten to enjoy the shoe meme. So
yep.
Well,
yeah, but having said all that, like I have lost every game in a tournament before, and when you're in that moment, it is not fun. It just isn't, and it is still an unfun experience. So you can sort of joke and laugh about it later, and maybe a lot of times it kind of motivated me. It motivates you to, like, okay, I gotta think about this a little more if I'm going to spend this kind of money and go to an event. I need to practice. I need to, like, read up on this stuff, and I just need to have my head in the game a little more. That's what I walked away when I lost every game at an event once. How did you feel about it when you're afterwards? I mean, once you got over the shock of it and you're flying home, I mean, were you more motivated?
Well, you actually raised an interesting point, which is when you said I lost every game at a tournament, I immediately thought to myself, I've never lost every game at a tournament. Wrong. I lost every game at ETC. But aside from that, I don't think I've had a losing record at a GT. I mean, I've never won a GT. I've gone 4 and 1 a bunch of times. Generally speaking, I can beat players who are a little bit below me, but as soon as I get to someone who's skilled enough, I just lose.
Got it.
And I might be psyching myself out too a little bit there, probably.
Yeah.
But like how I felt, coming back, I was super bummed, but aware that I was bummed about a game.
Yep.
And I was mostly kind of scared of why those things happen. So it did spark a little period of growth for myself personally, because it was just some weird shit that I couldn't really explain why those things were happening. I was a little concerned that I was able to, like, that I just failed to perform so much. I'm not putting good words to it, but it was just more like why did I turn off so much, and like why couldn't I pull out of the death spiral? Because it's like we weren't playing top tier, crazy, awesome teams all the way through. We played a number of teams, but those were games I could win, and I knew how to win them, and I just couldn't do it, or just did the dumbest stuff possible. And it was, so that was a little bit of a take a step back for me personally, and I think it led to some good changes in my own life. I don't know if any of them were the root causes, but if there was ever a moment where Warhammer had a positive impact on some of my habits, that was one of them. But mostly what I did was I was aware that I was just as far as 40K was concerned. So I took a time out, and about a month. I did box up my Tau, and I just basically started looking forward to the Orc Codex coming out.
Okay. All right.
And that with the Orc Codex coming out, I was essentially what I said. I'm just going to take a little break here, guys. And wait for that Orc Codex. And unfortunately, it didn't get there before Warzone Atlanta, so I ran Index Orcs at Warzone Atlanta. That might have been a losing record. Oh, yeah. Warzone, and I think I had a losing record at Warzone Atomic Empire. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes, I have had losing records. There you go.
Yeah.
Don't pillory me. Internet.
It will be okay. But so you actually said you kind of put things away for like a month it's just enough to kind of clear your head a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean the other thing is like I'm again so invested in a lot of this. Like what am I gonna do? I walk away from the game, I lose basically all of my friends at this point. People I talk to on a regular basis. I still have good friends from before Warhammer, but I don't talk to them every day. It's 40K friends I do. So and no one was like, oh, you ruined Canada. It wasn't like I was dealing with backlash or anything. I was just bummed, and I was also very aware of the fact that I was being bummed out about it. So I just said, okay, I'll take a little chill. And I think I played an APOC game with my Grey Knights just for fun in that stretch. I bought a bunch of Battlefleet Gothic, so I have a whole lot of Battlefleet Gothic work stuff, kind of intending to play, but I never did play it. And just got excited when the Orc Codex was coming, and basically skip a beat after that. And now Richard Ziegler has really got me fired up about Tau again, which is great. So I'm really excited to go back to Tau and play it a bit.
Have you ever walked away from 40K? Is it ever something you've ever said, I need to put this down for a while?
There's only been a very few times that I felt that way, and usually it's after a very, very nasty game of 40K. But it's in the 18 years I've been playing, it's only happened like 3 times.
Yeah,
and it doesn't last very long, but it definitely does shake you, and it's like, why do I even do this?
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, life only gives you what you can handle.
Yeah.
And, it makes you stronger, right?
Yeah.
The only way you can work out a muscle is by tearing it, making it burn, right?
Yeah.
And then your muscle gets stronger. Same sort of situation when you're in a bad, tough spot. Like, you just kind of learn from it and brush yourself off and just try again, and you have tools to deal with it in the future.
Yeah, I mean, 40K is such a social game that sometimes we've all had a game against somebody where you're just, in the best case, sometimes you're just not clicking, but worst case, it's just a really rough game for whatever reason. And those are, they're thankfully so few and far between that, sometimes people make it out to be a common occurrence, but I've never found it to be that common. But yeah, those things are they kind of shake you a little bit. You're just like, man.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time
it's not
with this
fun.
person. Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're a new player out there and you're like, oh my goodness, Skarri's talking about all these like crazy times. No, it's not common at all.
Yeah.
I've played 3 or 4 games a week for 10 years, and and over 18 years, who knows how many thousands of games I've played. Yeah. And I'm talking of 3 instances.
Yeah.
Like this is not a common thing.
No, not at all. No, they stick out only because they're very unique. Uncommon,
yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Let's hear a word from our sponsor, TraderA.com. If you're like most Warhammer players, you own a ton of models. At one time, you had big plans for these models, but now they just kind of sit, gathering dust, unused and unloved. It's time to clean out your closet of shame. Visit TraderA.com and get cash for your used models. Trader A is run by Captain A, someone who's been in the community a long time and has done a lot to grow the hobby. He's also a personal friend of the show. Unopened boxes, models on a sprue, half-built models, primed, painted, even bits have value. The process is simple. Send him a list of what you have, he'll send you a quote, you pack it up, send in your stuff, and he'll get you cash. You can shop around, but you're going to find that Trader A gives you 40% more than the other guys. You want it quick, you want to get rid of it, visit TraderA.com. Get cash to buy the stuff that you really want. TraderA.com. Sell your models and get your cash quick and easy. Why, and we just talked about how 40K can really take over, a lot of your life, but why is 40K important to you? Why has it become this thing that's important to you personally?
Well, because I get to make pew pew noises.
Yeah.
Yeah, and build like space robots to fight space aliens.
I guess that's really it.
I mean, what else? What do you need, man?
What else do you need in life? That's awesome.
All right, so I do like storytelling,
yeah,
and stuff. And so, but even when I'm putting my models together, like when I'm putting that sergeant together, or some dude in a cool like aiming pose or drawdown or something like that, I'm having this fantasy in my head. Yeah. About what he's doing, like how did he get there? What's going on?
Yeah,
like when I'm painting right now on my paint desk, I've got the Phobos captain. I'm painting him up as a blood angel. Like how did he get there? What's he doing right now on this rock?
Yeah.
Why is he in this pose?
Yeah,
what is he serving as a function within the Blood Angel army? That's sometimes why I buy models. I bought that Primaris chaplain as soon as he came out. Never put him on the table.
Yeah,
but he's just a cool model.
Yeah,
he's going to go on the table.
Well, and now he could. He's actually not bad. Yeah. He's pretty good. But
yeah, I got big plans for him.
Yeah, but there is that moment I think when you're because a lot of 40K is sort of solitary. But when you build a model, the construction stage or the painting stage, or you get to the point where you go in and you kind of look at it and you kind of hold it at arm's length and get a little close to it, and there's a sense of pride there. You're like, wow, this looks good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll bring it upstairs and show it to the family. Like, look what I just did. Look at it.
Yeah, look at this.
Isn't this neat?
Look at this blend. This is awesome.
Wait, no. No blends over here. Look at this crisp highlight. Look at this crisp shade.
Yeah, for sure. It's awesome. All right, Paul. So I guess if you're continuing, so 40K at this point, right now, given where the state of the game is right now, is it the best it's ever been?
Yes. But I have to say that with a caveat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for the interest and the ability of people to get out and interact with this stuff. I mean, think about the Facebook groups and the chat forums and that kind of stuff. It's like, so we can share, information can flow instantly, and that's great. That really is. I mean, that's the good part. I'm not trying to equivocate that at all.
Yeah.
So people get sweet combos and they're out there. Yeah. And then, so that part is good. For me, the only thing that would compete with how things are right now is just the nostalgia. Some of the stuff, like the game was a little bit easier to like build armies. Like you could build an army list, and it would stay your army list for a long time. I don't know that that's great. I'm just saying that's counter to how things are.
Yeah.
What is the best about 40K right now is everything I just talked about, like all the people. It's like there are 200-person events on the regular. Like it's easy. I'm not gonna say it's easy, because there's all these things behind the scenes that people don't necessarily think about when you like. Oh, wouldn't it be fun if our group went and ran a 200-person event?
Yeah,
like yeah, it'd be fun for some of y'all. Some of y'all would really not like what has to happen past that.
It's 100 tables. I got a terrain I got to put together. That's not easy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Whatever. I mean, that's but so the nostalgia of some of the freshness of this is I really like from back then. But you can't recapture that, and that's happening for some people today. Yeah. Like whatever I did back, or whatever people like me that were doing it for the first time back then. The first time you walk into that tournament hall, the first time you meet somebody that works at Games Workshop, the first time you meet one of the people that painted the model that inspired you in White Dwarf.
You're right. For a community, it's more accessible than it ever has been, but the discussion forums used to be the way you communicated, but now it's just somewhere, and there's just more of it. There's more opportunities to meet more people. And like I said, for a lot of people, it's their first time.
Yeah. So to them, it's the best. It's going to be the best time. Yeah. But I do love it how we have a heavily FAQ'd errata edition.
Yes.
I like it that we have that. I wish there was some way to make it like easier to stitch together, that somebody could download or tape it or something. I don't know. I don't claim to know what the answer is.
Yeah. It has lost a little bit of its now simplicity is not the right word. It's not so much the rules were that much more simple, but the construction of armies were much more simple. I mean, it was a cleaner game in some respects. There's a lot now. There's a lot more combos and things you can do now. It's more interesting, but yeah, it's different. That's for sure.
I want tight match play. That's all I want. I just want stuff that makes sense and there's no weirdness. And we got it. We got it. We're within 99% of it. It's this stuff that comes about that is unforeseeable, or that one situation. I shouldn't say unforeseeable, but that one situation in the outlier that rarely would ever happen, but sometime it happened in this game, and now we have to deal with it. Sure. We play the game where the unlikely happens somewhat regularly.
It's a dice game, that's for sure.
Yeah, we roll enough and play enough. I mean, especially if you play enough, you're going to see lots of situations. But man, I love it. I love it right now. I love it how the Warhammer community team is posting stuff and being irreverent with some of their replies in the chat and stuff to keep it funny. It's like, it's not. I mean, they're not trolling people or whatever, but I like that they can have that flexibility to do it while they're pumping out this amazing stuff, content that we want. I mean, heck, I've told this story several times. Like when GW decided they didn't want to put out any information for like a year because they were worried about leaks and stuff. I get it. I'm not like, when a leak comes out, when it's not controlled, it messes with your marketing. Somebody out there that was they got to pay people to do the marketing, right? I think there was an example with Magic. So somebody spoiled this entire set. I can't even remember what set it was. I mean, this isn't like it was like 10 years ago past.
Oh, okay.
Somebody spoiled a whole set, and Wizards of the Coast got really, really pissed at them. Yeah. And the reason they got, I'm talking about like ban them from the events, ban them from the Hall of Fame, that kind of mad. not just a you shouldn't do it. It was because it really, they had paid money. The company had paid money to line up all these marketing events that were going to spoil the cards over a course of time, and invested their own time and stuff. And then nobody was going to care about it. So they just wasted all that stuff for those people. So I, as someone who loves leaks and looked at every one of those cards that leaked, I'm simply giving the other side of it.
Yeah, you could understand why they kind of did what they did, but you're right now. They're kind of in on the joke, and they get it. And if something leaks, they get out way in front of it. They say, okay, that was a crappy picture. Here's a better picture. And consequently, you don't see a lot of leaks now. The source of truth often comes from Games Workshop now.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. They've embraced it, and they have a team of people that embrace it. And the team, the people, the ones that I know are that are on the team are like dedicated hobby people. These are people that they're doing it because it's a job, sure, but they would probably be painting armies and getting figures and stuff even if it wasn't their job.
Yeah.
They're good folks, good-hearted people as well.
Yeah. Why is 40K important to you? I mean, you're making a living at it right at this point. I mean, why is it important to you?
I love the gaming community. Like, I feel it is a place where you can be anybody who you want to be and you belong. We come from all walks of life. We come from all professions. We come from all social status and strata and racial backgrounds and everything. And it's like a thing that just unites you from no matter where you're from. You can go to, I could be here in Canada and travel to, Mexico, or travel to China, or travel to, Europe, and find a local game store and hang out with the locals, play a game of 40K and not even speak the same language, but we understand what's going on. Yeah. And, you can interact with any person at any point in time. And I feel that sort of human interaction, when there's like over 7 billion people on the planet, and you having a connection to any one person anywhere in the world because of a little game that we play, is just kind of unites us in that sense. And I think that's really important, and is what draws me to just wanting to do it more, to meet people, to learn from others, and to constantly improve yourself as a person, as well as, the art, right? Yeah. Like the art part of it and the strategy part of it. And there's just so many places of self-improvement that you can work on.
Yeah. The game is massive, and no one's going to master all of it. But you can work hard to get good at a bunch of it. There's a lot of areas you can do, and you've moved around enough that it sounds like, really, I mean, if you move to a new area, you just go, okay, where's the gaming store at? And once you find that gaming store where they play 40K, then boom, there's an instant group of people that you can just hang out with.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice. What do you think of 8th edition right now? Where do you think the game is at right now in this current time? Where's 40K at? Is this the best it's ever been?
Yes. Yeah, right now the 8th edition 40K, if we're talking about the game specifically, is the healthiest I have seen it since I started playing. I started playing in early to mid 3rd edition, and I've never seen so much variety in lists. I've never seen so many different lists at events. I've never seen how big the events are. It's ridiculous how, it's crazy to think how big and how frequent these big events are. Yeah. In comparison to, 10 years ago, when getting 16 people at an RTT was like a feat.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And now, you have places selling out, and, 100 people at your tournament, you're like a small tournament. You're a small, big tournament. Yeah. You're big, but you're like a small, big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's just, it's inconceivable.
Why is 40K important to you? What is it about it that is important to you?
Well, obviously it is important. Yeah. I always get annoyed with my wife when she says, well, I know it's very important to you. I always find it almost like, of course it's not important. It's 40K. Come on. But then I'm like, if you were to, step back for a second here, obviously it's, the center of my social life and the thing I really, really like doing. Why is it important? I don't know. I think for a lot of the reasons we've sort of touched on already, it just is a thing that is entirely engrossing, something you do with other people. And Games Workshop does a really good job of constantly sort of, moving that dragon a little bit further on down, so you can't quite grab his tail, and you just got to keep chasing him. You gotta follow that white rabbit as far as you can, and as long as it remains engaging, it just you can merrily continue going for a long time. There's all kinds of guys who have played nonstop since Road Trader. And they're varying degrees of having normal lives outside of that. So it's why is it important? I guess it's just endlessly entertaining. There's so many facets to it. There's always something to talk about. It's a microcosm. The Warhammer community is a microcosm of the world at large. Yeah, I think one of my favorite things to sort of just think about is every time a rule change happens or something new appears, people react to it the same way they would a new government policy or a change in the cast of a TV show they like, or a plot twist they didn't agree with. It's the fact that we can all hear each other and see how things react, how people react. You sort of get a feel for just how people are, and it's its own real thing. And also, it's important to me because I get to do all kinds of stuff. I get to be on podcasts. I get to play in these massive tournaments. It's exciting to me. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, as you talked about, the effects of 40K are so unique and insular to the community. So like I'll be on my Facebook and I'll see something and it'll pop up and it's like, I don't know, like today it was the salamander strat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I find myself digging into this at work and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to put this away right now. I mean, it's amazing how it transports you out of whatever you're doing into the 40K sort of universe of like, oh, this is a cool model that got released. Oh, this is a cool rule that's out here. Oh, here's the new salamanders, the Iron Fist characters or Imperial Fist characters. I mean, these things just kind of suck you right into 40K, and it in different facets, but it's almost instantaneous.
Yeah, and I mean I've been there with other stuff too. Like I talk about golf actually. Yeah, I think helped prepare me for like hitting a shot and watching it ricochet off a sprinkler head, despite it being perfectly executed. And it's like that one that you finally hit right. And it just hits a rock and it bounces 40 yards off somewhere else. That prepared me for re-rolling a 1 into a 1. Like that's that sort of got me ready for that. Or being super into football, like whatever it is people are into, like they do that all the time. We whatever catches people's fancy, like they'll get. We just have a capacity for getting super into weird stuff and. 40K, I'm quite pleased is the thing that I've gotten into, and I always like to joke too, like when I go to the LVO, we were talking earlier about when friends at work ask, oh, where are you going this weekend? I was like, oh, just going to a tournament, But like people ask me, and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to Vegas this weekend. I'm like, oh, Vegas, bud, all right, bud, okay, all right, bud, get Vegas, and like I get perverse pleasure knowing that I'm doing the most innocent thing in Vegas at any given time. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And never let people believe otherwise.
I mean, Vegas is great, but honestly, I'm there for the 40K.
I think the idea of putting the LVO where it is was a very shrewd move. I mean, the other place, if you could find a good venue, is probably like Atlanta, like essentially like an airport hub or a place that people are very happy to fly direct to. Yeah. It's a very nice. Good stroke of genius on the FLG guy's point. It's generally cheap for anyone in North America to fly to Vegas or even from further away. But I agree. I would not go to Vegas. It is not my scene. If it weren't for a very large Warhammer tournament that happens there this year.
There we go. I'd like to thank my guests, Paul, Skarri, and Val, for taking time out of their schedules to interview with me. Hopefully, this felt like a seamless conversation. Please, give me some feedback on it and let me know what you thought. What I think was interesting about the three people I talked to is some of the similarities. You heard community come up a lot, and going to events come up a lot, and the social part of 40K come up a lot. And I think that's something we've stressed on this show. It's part of our tagline, after all, is that this game of 40K, why do we play it? It's not just a game, like a board game. There's a social element to it, but it's not even just that. There's a whole hobby related to it. There's a painting to it. And even beyond that, there's deep lore embedded in these models. And that is what makes the game of 40K so different from other kinds of games. And that's why, because it has so much richness to it and has so much you can do, it does tend to it just tends to become something that just grabs and doesn't let go. But there's a lot of hurdles to get involved. There's a lot to kind of overcome. And if you're able to do that, you can really get into this hobby and really just make it your own. But there's so many times where this game can throw some curveballs at you, even from the very beginning. When you first start off and you're trying to build an army, and especially if you don't really know what you're doing, it can be really tricky. The key, I think, to really getting into this hobby and really flourishing in it is to find a good group of players that you like to play with and go from there. You heard Skarri talk about how some of the worst moments of 40K is when his groups disintegrate, and it's really, really true. Usually it's not the game itself, it's the play experiences I have found that tend to sour you a little bit on the game. So if you have a good group of people to play with, you'll always have that to fall back on. You'll always appreciate the game for what it is. So thanks so much to Paul, Skarri, and Val for being on our special 100th episode of the Battlehosts. And thank you for listening to our show. We'd love to hear from our listeners, so please feel free to message us on Facebook or email us at thebattlehosts@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, you can do it in a few different ways. You can tell your friends about us. You can like us on Facebook. You can leave a review on iTunes, which helps to boost our listening audience. Finally, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thebattlehosts. For as little as $1 a month, you can help us with the cost of running the show and staying engaged with the community. So thank you for listening to The Battlehosts. Remember to be a better gamer and to build a better community. And good night.